Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. As always, it is Nick here, back for your daily crypto news and analysis. And today we are going to be talking about Ripple and XRP, as well as the vast majority of crypto and finance. And with that being said, I hope that you were all having a beautiful day or a beautiful night, wherever you guys are out there in the world. So going back to September of 2023, I put out a post regarding a quote from the MasterCard CEO. I said, if Swift really wants to retain its role in the global economy, it needs to start collaborating with private players like Ripple. And the CEO of MasterCard said, how Swift could be phased out in the next 5 years, remember the quote, adapt or die. The world is changing and these global giants need to start planning their next move strategically. Now, with a lot of the recent moves from Swift, I do think that they're actually integrating with DLT platforms like RippleNet, and they're actually kind of innovating towards this new digital world that is being designed and crafted through specific players in this space. And I think that everyone right now really needs to focus on the much larger picture that, it's not all about what company is trying to kill what other company, what company is trying to replace this company. I think that we get caught up in this this game where it's all competition. But I think that we need to look at this space as more aligned towards collaboration. Just recently, going back to August, right, there was a full report from MasterCard, and it was, is safe the new sexy? CBDCs trust and the evolution of money. And I'm sure that if you are an XRP holder, you know about this, right? We have central banks have been exploring ways to issue their own digital currencies for years, yet their efforts haven't captured the public's attention, for better or more recently for worse, like cryptocurrencies have. But central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs, essentially a digital version of fiat currency backed by a government and therefore far less speculative than crypto, are gaining momentum with the potential to have an even bigger impact on our everyday lives. And this is because 93% of central banks are engaged in some form of work on CBDCs, and 4 retail CBDCs are already in full live circulation, according to the BIS. Now, with that in mind, but there are many questions that central banks need to consider. And we have down here, this includes the role of the private sector in CBDC issuance, security, privacy, and interoperability. Now, as we think about that, right, here are the CBDCs that MasterCard is exploring in terms of 2023. So we have England, Bank of England, and the BIS Innovation Hub on APIs and how they could facilitate retail CBDC payments. Quant Network is actually tapped in with that. We have Hong Kong with the EHKD. Ripple is playing a role in that in terms of tokenized real estate. And then we also have Brazil, Banco Central do Brazil, on the privacy and programmability of the Drex platform, a multi-asset DLT ecosystem focused on wholesale CBDCs or settlement. United States, various financial services players on the feasibility of the regulated liability network, including a theoretical wholesale CBDC and commercial bank deposit tokens. And then, of course, we have Australia, Reserve Bank of Australia, which is tapped in with Hedera on a few endeavors, and Digital Finance CRC on potential ways to enable interoperable CBDCs for trusted Web3 commerce. Now, down here we have, to bring a greater understanding of the benefits and limitations of CBDCs and how to implement them in a way that is safe, seamless, and useful, MasterCard is convening a group of leading blockchain technology and payment service providers to join its new CBDC partner program. And this is where we got a glimpse at it, right? It's Ripple, Consensus, Fluency, Idemia, Consult, Hyperion, and then also a few other players in terms of like Fireblocks and stuff. But this is the CBDC platform. Ripple, they're mentioning CBDC platform, which I find very interesting. But we also have down here a confirmation of what they're trying to do with Ripple as well. We have, they mention Ripple in terms of the Republic of Palau, in addition to the work of 4 CBDC pilots. But they mention that we believe in payment choice and that interoperability across the different ways of making payments is an essential component of a flourishing economy. As we look ahead towards a digitally driven future, it will be essential that the value held as a CBDC is as easy to use as other forms of money. Now, as we think about that, right, where does Ripple stand in all of this? Well, I do think that the CBDC platform by Ripple is pretty much the secret sauce. I've talked about this in the past. I do think that more and more central banks will choose that. But the reason why I'm talking about this, again, because this is August 2023, is because we just got an announcement from MasterCard. And we have MasterCard. Ripple can solve traditional remittance challenges. Bodes well for blockchain and CBDCs. This is March 26th. This is actually getting posted by Tranglo. They do quote Wrath of Kahneman, by the way, which I will talk about, but we have scoring a win. MasterCard endorses Ripple for global remittances, a boost for XRP. This was 17 hours ago. If we scroll down, we could see Ripple gets a stamp of approval from MasterCard. But we already knew this, right? Because MasterCard was already collaborating with Ripple. We have the MasterCard report highlighted the critical role remittances play in Latin America, citing UN data. It details how these cross-border payments are a lifeline for families and communities, especially in low and middle-income countries. Mexico, for instance, received a staggering $55 billion in remittances in 2022, making it the world's largest recipient. And as we look at this and we think about what's happening, right? Obviously, the way that we transact and the way that we receive money is changing in a very, very rapid pace. Over here we have from Wrath of Kahneman, Ripple cited a few times in the new MasterCard report, the future of remittances in Latin America, digitalization, multiple rails, and the strategic role of partnerships. Again, XRP was not directly mentioned, but they did mention, of course, cross-border payments with Ripple, which we do know XRP plays a vital role. And these are the other images. Now, I will say this, right? Everyone is fully focused on what the SEC is doing with Ripple and XRP at a time where we see MasterCard, which is a dominant force in the payment space, mentioning Ripple like this and highlighting the specific use case by Ripple, Stellar, things like that. Over here from XRP Drops, we have new MasterCard report, March of 2024, mentions Ripple and XRP as a bridge currency. Blockchain-based companies such as Ripple, Stellar, and Circle bring speed and visibility to international money movement in all verticals, including remittances. SBI Remit is using Ripple's XRP as a bridge currency to allow fast and cost-effective remittances. And here we also have that full-on breakdown of this. And it's just so interesting to me that when we look at CBDCs as well, so big shout out to Wrath of Kahneman, like I said, for this. If I zoom in on this, you guys can see it. So this is CBDCs. We have central bank digital currencies may help move money. Governments all around the world are designing their own CBDCs. More than 130 initiatives exist today worldwide. Several of these projects feature cross-border wholesale CBDCs, which have the potential to transform international money movement for all industry actors. Ripple is in talks with over a dozen governments for CBDC development, many of them for cross-border payments. And it's so interesting at this current moment in time that as we look at Ripple and as we look at CBDCs, obviously everyone hates CBDCs in terms of the retail sector, but they are inevitable. They are happening. They are moving very fast. Over 93% of the world is looking into them. And as we look at Ripple, it seems as though they are at the forefront with a lot of their endeavors and a lot of the connections that they also have as well. I mentioned in a previous video, the BIS, right, with the CPMI group. We also have MasterCard working with Ripple, which again, like MasterCard is a big name. Everyone knows MasterCard. But also outside of this, right? Like you actually look at the CBDC platform that they have created, and we look at this and we think about it, and we're like, all right, well, how many central banks are right now utilizing the CBDC platform in terms of like a trial basis? How many NDAs does Ripple have in place? Because we know over a dozen governments. In previous videos, I've talked about 20 to 30 central banks that they are in discussions with, because we know from James Wallace that they are in discussions with 20 to 30 central banks. But how many central banks do they have in NDAs? How many institutions are in NDAs? We don't know that. Remember, Ripple is a private company. They give us transparent updates, obviously, but there's still a lot of things behind NDAs that we don't know about. But the reason why Ripple, in my opinion, will become a chosen one in terms of CBDC endeavors because of their CBDC platform. And by the way, for anyone that is sitting there saying, oh, well, XRP is not utilized on this because they're utilizing private XRP ledger technology. Guys, in previous videos that they had on this tab, they replaced it with this one, but in a previous video that was on here, they still talk about XRP being the bridge currency for CBDCs. I'm so tired of hearing the argument that XRP won't be utilized as a bridge currency for CBDCs. It 100% will. It's the perfect use case for XRP. And it's something that Ripple has been focused on for a very long time in terms of the internet of value. But regardless, over here, we also have Ripple works with central banks. Big shout out to Chad Steingraber for this, but this is a policy update. When you actually look at the policy focus areas, they are working with central banks. they're working with pretty much every single regulatory body out there. They're working with institutions. They are in discussions with a lot of these big players. And I want you all to understand that, like, as Ripple's working with these central banks and talking with these central banks, and they're showing them how disruptive the technology behind this space is, everyone's still blinded by meme coins and blinded by just one thing, which is price action. And I've talked about it many times, right? Like, obviously price action and making money is a big deal. It 100% is. And it's the goal of most people that, invest. But I also want you guys to understand that, like, we're talking long term here. We're talking about completely shaking things up around the global monetary system, a complete change of the global monetary system. Things are starting to change rapidly. And I really think that as we look at CBDCs, we could still be years away from any substantial volume and value moving through CBDCs, but I strongly believe that Ripple is at the forefront of this, considering the fact that they already are compliant through policies. They are already talking to major central banks, and they are getting cited by MasterCard. Like, this is a massive announcement from MasterCard. Like, MasterCard has confirmed some big players that are mentioned here. And again, this is another document where the only companies mentioned on here are Ripple, Stellar, and Circle. Like, think about that, right? Like, it's so comical that you never see other players mentioned here. It's just Ripple, Stellar, and Circle. And only 2 of these projects are utilizing digital assets in the space that are not stablecoins. So think about how crazy that is. Now, going over here, we have from the Digital Pound Foundation, new partner, the Digital Dollar Project has joined the Digital Pound Foundation as a strategic partnership. So as we really look at this, right, like, this is CBDCs. Digital Pound Foundation, the Digital Dollar Project, they're fully focused on CBDCs. You look at the Digital Dollar Project, the Digital Dollar Project is a neutral nonprofit forum focused on exploring digital innovation and money and preserving the role of the US dollar in a world of decentralized and centralized sovereign and non-sovereign digital currency networks. Now, what's funny about this is, like, this is the same exact thing that the Digital Pound Foundation is. But the Digital Pound Foundation, we have memberships here, Ripple, Quant, you have some of the other working groups on here, the Digital Euro Association, the Digital Dollar Project, like almost every single major CBDC organization and group is connected here. And what's funny about all of this, right, is they have been working on this since 2021. The Digital Dollar Project has been around for a while. And it's at a time where, like, right now, CBDCs could not be any heavier of a subject. Why? Because look at what's happening around the fiat-based system. When we look at the names on here, when we look at the companies tied to this, like, these are the legitimate projects that you want to be focused on. Now, is this the only names that we should be focused on? No, but they're CBDC initiatives. And it really kind of goes back to even what recently was said back in October. And this is from James Wallace. This is from Ripple. This is the guy who told us, hey, we're in discussions with 20 to 30 central banks. And this is justifying the implementation of CBDCs. Now, like I said, I'm not very bullish on CBDCs, but they are happening. They are here. The first is technology. For CBDCs to move from experimentation to real-world implementation, they must have a resilient, secure technical infrastructure with the ability to onboard, authenticate, and support users on a massive scale. They need to cope with an ever-increasing throughput of transactions. But also, right, when we think about infrastructure, they want to have frictionless cross-border payments. This is where we go back to what CBDC or the CBDC platform on Ripple is essentially becoming, with XRP as a bridge currency for CBDCs. That's how you achieve frictionless cross-border transactions with CBDCs. The second pillar is policy, which again, we look at this and we know that Ripple is fully focused on policy with crypto regulation, CBDCs, anti-money laundering, financial inclusion, all of that. But then we also look at this quote down here. Without seamless cross-border functionality, most CBDC projects could significantly underachieve their potential. So even with the technology and pillar or the policy pillars in place, the key to sustainable real-world CBDC application ultimately hinges upon usability, the third design pillar of a well-functioning CBDC. So usability, they need to have a smooth, frictionless end-user wallet experience. The technology-driven newness may pose a barrier to adoption for many. So what they want to do is make sure that all of this is as easy as possible to use. And what's funny about this is that we're kind of there. right? Where the underlying tech stack is making things extremely seamless. You're not going to see XRP moving. You're not going to see Ripple's name. You're just going to see the banking sector completely change, not overnight, but over time, and it's moving more towards digital. This is why we look at what MasterCard is trying to do, because MasterCard is a major payment company. They move money. They are a giant. If you even look at the About section on their website, who we are, right? We could actually see always moving forward, unlocking potential. We reshape the digital economy so everyone, individuals, financial institutions, governments, and businesses can realize their ambitions. Who we serve, they fully break down everything of what they're doing. We work to connect, empower an inclusive digital economy that benefits everyone, everywhere, everywhere by making transactions safe, simple, smart, and accessible. Like, this is a major giant that are mentioning Ripple and XRP and even Stellar and XLM specifically in documents. They are a giant. They always have been a giant. But when you think about this, right, like, they are a company that could tap into DLT and you wouldn't even realize it. All of a sudden, if you're using a MasterCard, guess what? You're now utilizing DLT, but you don't know. This is why I say, like, mass adoption is going to come from companies like MasterCard, Visa, you name it, tapping into DLT and the end customer not even seeing the back end technology. They only see the front end, which is like a new UI, for an example, or something. That's also why when I look at the CBDC platform, right, like, they give us a little bit of an insight on the Ripple CBDC platform, but we're not going to see this. Banks are going to see this. Central banks, institutions, they're going to see this. We're not going to see this. But when we think about this, right, this is the back end technology layer. The front end technology layer is, a push of this on a global scale through specific monetary systems. Like, for example, the Digital Pound Foundation. All of a sudden, the UK pushes the digital pound. We're now in a digital world in the UK, and they're tapping in through DLT, for an example. People don't even realize it. But this is how things work. Like, this is what's going to happen. It's very similar to the internet, right? I always bring up the idea of, HTTP, TCP, and also even IP. People don't know what those things are, but they know that if they go into Google and type in YouTube, they're going to YouTube. They don't care about the back end. They only care about what's on the front end. It's the same exact thing with transactions. Majority of people don't even know what ISO 20022 is. They don't know how their transactions work. It's the same exact thing. I remember when I first started really addressing XRP on this channel, people were like, why would we care about XRP if I could just use Venmo or PayPal or Cash App? Again, everyone's looking at it as, oh, well, this is digital payments. This is instant, right? If I make a payment, people receive it instantly. Yeah, they receive it instantly, but guess what? On your end, it doesn't settle for days. That's the problem with these front-facing digital applications. They don't have a settlement layer that is instantly settling transactions. That's why we're still living in antiquated ways in terms of settlement. Payments are faster, settlement isn't. This is also why when we look at CBDCs, if CBDCs don't have instant settlement through DLT, it's a waste of time. It's the same exact fiat system, just digital. I mean, if we're going to replace the fiat system with a digital system, it has to be faster. Settlement has to be instant. And that's why when we look at these players like Ripple, it's very clear on where we are headed. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.